The Leadership in Law podcast is powered by Law Marketing Zone. Transform your firm's digital presence with expert marketing solutions tailored exclusively for attorneys at lawmarketingzone.com.
Welcome to the Leadership in Law podcast with host Marilyn Jenkins. Cut through the noise, get actionable insights and inspiring stories delivered straight to your ears. Your ultimate podcast for navigating the ever-changing world of law firm ownership. In each episode, we dive deep into the critical topics that matter most to you, from unlocking explosive growth to building a thriving team. We connect you with successful firm leaders and industry experts who share their proven strategies and hard-won wisdom. So, whether you're a seasoned leader or just starting your journey as a law firm owner, the Leadership in Law podcast is here to equip you with the knowledge and tools you need to build a successful and fulfilling legal practice.
Welcome to another episode of the Leadership in Law podcast. I'm your host, Marilyn Jenkins. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Tony Edwards, to the show today. Tony is a seasoned plaintiff's personal injury attorney and founder of Edwards and Patterson Personal Injury Law Firm in McAlester, Oklahoma. Licensed since 1982 and AV rated by his peers, Tony has built a 4-decade career representing injured workers, families, and everyday people across Oklahoma, from oilfield and trucking accidents to defective product and complex liability cases. What truly defines Tony's work is his deep connection to his community and his belief that justice isn't just a big city concept, it belongs in small towns too. His firm invests in local outreach, including an annual scholarship program and ongoing support for teachers, reflecting his philosophy that clients are neighbors and relationships that last far beyond the courtroom. I'm excited to have you here, Tony. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your leadership journey. You had a very interesting bio.
I started out just practicing law in another small town in Oklahoma, in Ada, and wound up in McAlester, my hometown, actually, and joined a firm there. Actually, at that time, it was back in the 80s and early 90s. It was the largest plaintiff's personal injury firm in Oklahoma, with offices in Oklahoma City and Tulsa as well. And I became a partner there, and it turns out that we had a lot of partners, and I was the only one that got along with everyone else well enough to be the liaison to get anything accomplished, really. And I got tired of that and decided to start my own firm. And we did that for a few years with a couple of other partners, and finally decided to change just because I liked the more hometown feel. And Matt Patterson, who was an associate of ours, became my partner. And we've been partners for the last just over 10 years now, and have grown our law firm considerably in McAlester area, but Tulsa is really our primary market. But through that time, we have done many things other than just practice law, so far as some of the things that you mentioned when you introduced me. And we just think that the business of law is more important than just representing people. It's also doing a lot in the community and helping groups of people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know that we talked about that before. And so how do you feel like practicing law in small town Oklahoma shaped the way that you approach your cases and your clients?
I have, through my career, I've done a lot of work for about 10 years, I did nothing but mass torts. I was in a lot of pharmaceutical litigation and different things like that. And I came across a lot of lawyers from around the country, very good lawyers, very skilled lawyers. But also I realized that the roots that I have in a small town, Oklahoma, we act differently. We treat people differently, from other lawyers to our own clients. And I like that feel. I want to be myself with my clients, and I want them to be themselves with me, develop a relationship, not just a attorney-client, but as a friend, as somebody that they may call me for something else later on. I don't know. And I don't do that for marketing. I just do that because I like to get along with people. But I think a lot of the small town traits that we see in a lot of the areas of this country, that is more developed in those small towns than it is in more urban areas. And I'm not saying anything against urban areas or larger cities, but it just seems like a lot of the primary lawyers involved in a lot of these things have a very different business, no holds barred, scorched earth type policies, and I just don't really agree with that.
I'm from a small town too, so yeah, I get what you're saying there. It does make a big difference. So you did mass torts and those kinds of things, and I know most people think that major litigation stuff happens in big cities. What advantages do small town lawyers have when it comes to those high stake cases that outsiders might overlook?
In a lot of ways, just what I just said about getting to know your client, even though we would have hundreds of clients in some of the mass tort cases and that sort of thing, I would still get to a point where I would know them, and I know their families. And when you know a person, it's much easier to represent them and to argue on their behalf instead of just knowing a few symptoms or a few injuries or whatever and saying this is because of this drug or this pharmaceutical device. Instead of just arguing that, if you really know the client and you know what it's done to their lives and things like that, it makes it much easier to argue those kind of things. And I'm certainly not holding myself up to this kind of a standard, but if you remember, Erin Brockovich
Yes, that's just what I thought about when you were saying that.
Yeah, she knew every client in that whole situation and could tell you everything about their families and all that. I'm not saying I'm near that good, and we've not been able to do anything like as much as she did, but at least we have that flavor going through a case and going through a group of clients, and we want to know them.
I love that. Yeah, it's just knowing them. And that movie came to mind as soon as you were explaining that. Now, you do oilfield work, trucking, big dangerous industry work as well. What makes these cases especially challenging legally and emotionally for you?
One thing in particular about oilfield accidents, one, they're very difficult because on most oilfield websites, drill sites, there are so many companies out there doing so many different things that are all needed and all have to work together, that really getting through all of that contractual and corporate entities and issues to find out who was truly at fault in an accident, that's one of the biggest problems that we have. But it just takes a lot of time and effort to do that. And many times we have to go through 3 or 4 companies, for instance, before we find the one company that actually caused an accident or caused an injury. And that's a big factor. The law in Oklahoma isn't very helpful in that regard either, because the laws have typically been introduced that help the oil and gas industry in Oklahoma, surprisingly. But so that makes it more difficult for us. But it's something that, like I said, it takes a lot of work and a lot of experience in knowing where to look for things like that. But we're able to do that on those types of cases. And in a way, those also factor into other industries, such as trucking and things like that. We're seeing more and more trucking accidents. We've got independent contractors and leased corporations or leasing corporations, leasing trucks. And sometimes you wind up with drivers, unfortunately, that are not from this country and are very difficult to locate, very difficult to even communicate with. And I know a lot of that is changing. And in effect, that's already a violation of the rules of the road to have a driver who can't communicate with the public. That's just that is a law. We've got so many out there that can't do that. And those type of things are all affected by the corporations and the companies that know what they're doing, I won't say they're trying to hide things necessarily, but they're just making it difficult to get to the root cause of injuries and accidents.
And with your work with these cases and stuff, has that influenced your views on worker safety and the blame of corporate responsibility?
Oh, absolutely. I talk to friends of my own, whether it's at church or at a ball game or wherever, and we're talking about different things. If something like that comes up about a particular type of accident or somebody's hurt or whatever, when you realize that corporations typically, and not all corporations fit into this, but many do, corporations typically do everything they can to hide how they may be responsible or liable for injuries. And they want to whitewash everything because ultimately to them, it's all about the dollar. It's all about profits. And anytime an injury is involved, that reduces profits. And they do everything they can to make sure that is difficult to get to the bottom line and the real truth about what happened. And that's why a good, and I'm not saying this is just me, but a good experienced lawyer that's done a lot of the cases in that area, that's why they're so valuable to those cases. because you need to know what you're doing when you get into them.
I see. Yes. So when you're going up against these big corporations and, of course, their insurance companies, which are all going to be towing the same line, what does it actually take behind the scenes to win justice for an ordinary family?
A lot of work. And we see there are some defense lawyers that we know and we know fairly well in Oklahoma. There's some that I love to get on the other side of a case, not because they're easy or they're difficult or better lawyers or anything else, but because a lawyer that kind of knows what to argue about and knows what to fight over that's important. That makes a case makes life easier. But regardless of that, you have to be able to really get through and siphon through everything to find out what may or may not be important. I'm old enough to remember back in the old days, a lot of times we'd do what we call trial by ambush. We wouldn't know what the other side had because discovery was not very strong back then. You couldn't discover a lot of things. And when you got to trial, the other side would show up with things that we never dreamed of, we never had access to. That has changed tremendously. And now, if you're very good at getting discovery, if you're very good at asking the right questions and going the right directions on those things, you can find out everything about a case so that you're not surprised at trial. And I think that we're very good at that. And that is something that I think every lawyer should strive to do, because the last thing you want to do is get to trial and you see something for the first time that really affects the case itself and certainly the value of the case.
Agreed. Wasn't there a case in the 70s that the one side had to did a discovery for 150 pages of documents and they stuck them in a truckload of boxes of papers?
Yes,
Was that
I think
70s,
so.
70s or 80s? I remember that. And they had to go through and that's before we had scanners that could find all this stuff. It literally took people looking at every page to find the ones they were looking for.
It took several people several weeks and months to find what they were looking for. And then it was by luck that they found it anyway. But as it turns out, I say luck, it really was hard work by a lot of people. And it just used to take many more man hours than it does now.
Yes. It's just, well,
Because of technology, really.
Exactly. So after 4 decades in the courtroom, what's the one lesson that these big cases taught you that still guides your approach today?
The main thing is you need your client, the plaintiff, the injured party, needs to be able to make a connection with the jury.
Okay.
That's the biggest thing. A jury is just folks. It's just folks from the community. And you want your client to be able to make that connection with them. I'll be honest, some clients, that is very difficult. They're just hard people to like.
Yeah.
But the best cases are typically the plaintiffs are easy to like, and they're good, solid people. And when a jury recognizes that, I think even if a juror may be a little sketchy in some ways, the group of the jury itself recognizes that person's a good person, so we're going to try to help them. And we want to help them. And if a jury truly wants to help someone, that's where you will get a good result. Now, you get good results, even though the jury doesn't necessarily like that. But I think even in that situation, the result would have been better if that plaintiff had made a connection with the jury. And I'm not saying that the plaintiff has to come in and schmooze up to every juror or anything like that. I'm just saying they have to be themselves.
And be likable.
Exactly. And that I tell people all the time that, look, don't go in and try to know everything and try to be all to everyone. I don't know. That's a great answer if it's true. I don't remember. That's a great answer if it's true. Just be yourself. And that's the main thing. And then if they will be themselves, I can, in some ways, make that connection with them for the juror and say, look, here's this person did this or said this, and let the jury remember that part. And that's all. That's the biggest thing, though, is making sure you have a connection with the plaintiff and the jury.
I love that. Get personal, because people help people with good people. Yeah.
Exactly.
Let's talk about some of your community outreach. Now, I know that your firm invests heavily in community outreach, including scholarships and support for teachers. Why is it such an important part of your mission?
The 2 or 3 things. One, in Oklahoma, in a lot of states, the teaching profession is under attack in a lot of ways from the government and different folks that want to say, well, teachers are indoctrinating kids and all this. The most important person in my life was my father, and he was a teacher. He was a school principal as well, but he was one of those teachers that everybody liked. They were drawn to him. He remembered them after they graduated. They remembered him. They all loved him. By and large, they all loved him. But he was my role model for all my life. So that's the biggest part for me. My partner, his mother is a teacher and has been for many years. His wife was a teacher. She's no longer teaching, and his sister's a teacher. So in looking at everything, we just decided that, hey, helping education and teachers in particular is a way to show some gratitude, to show recognition towards that profession when they're really getting beat up in a lot of ways. And so we sponsor an Eastern Oklahoma Teacher of the Year award through the Arrows Foundation, which is really, it's a pretty big deal. We have several hundred, I guess, applicants every year. And we have 3 college presidents who actually review all of those things and decide who the winner is. But this is a teacher that doesn't just teach and give out grades. This is a teacher that makes that connection with students. And much like I like to think my father was, because he taught me as well, but in a lot of ways, they connect with the teachers, they connect with the students then, and it's something that's a lifelong thing, but that makes the students not just go to school to get a grade, but go to school to actually learn something and to become people. And those are the kind of teachers that we want to recognize, acknowledge. And in addition to that, then we give a scholarship to a graduating senior from the school that the teacher is from who wins.
Wow.
It may be an elementary teacher, but we still give it to a senior in that school, just to show that this is not just a one-person thing, but it's also for the students as well. And so far, it's just been very well received and I just love it. I love going to the banquet. We make the announcement and all of this, and it's just a great time to do that. And I just love that connection. We do that every year. In the past, we've also given away some things around the first of the year to a teacher that needs it, because we've got plenty of money to do a lot of things in the country, but teachers still have to buy their own supplies.
Right.
We wind up giving several $100s to a few teachers that win a drawing, whatever. We've done that for several years as well. But that's just a little bit helpful compared to, I think, to the recognition that a teacher gets for Teacher of the Year award. So
I love that. Something close to your heart.
yeah, that's one thing, that if you're going to do something in the community or wherever you do it, it's got to be something you're passionate about. Yeah. We could give money to a lot of different organizations and say, yeah, I'll take this and go give it to somebody and all that. And that's great. That may help them for a little bit. But if you're really excited and enthused about the group that you're working with and the group you're trying to help, I think that adds so much to it.
I agree. I was talking to someone else a couple of months ago, and we were talking about networking. And she said, some people say play golf or go to the BNI or whatever. And she says, pick something that's organic to you. And I love that. Right. That's what you've done for your community outreach, is something that resonates with your entire team.
And it makes it so much easier to you. I don't mind at all. I know how to talk to teachers. I know what they're going through and a lot of different things. It just makes everything a lot easier.
Love that. I love that. So you also emphasize integrity and relationships over transactions. How has that philosophy shaped your firm's reputation and put that trust in clients in place?
We tell people that we would like to get a review from them.
Okay.
At the beginning of the case, I tell them, look, I want 5-star service for you. And that's before I get to know them very well. We do that. And then I talk to them several times through the case as well, that, look, if you're not getting 5-star treatment, come and talk to me personally. We've got several staff members and all who actually manage the cases day to day and have much more contact with the clients than I do. But I want them all to be aware that they can call me. The buck stops with me no matter what, good or bad, but anything, I want to talk to them. And as we do that, develop relationships with different clients. And that's, I think, even clients that I don't meet and I just talk to over the phone or things like that, those relationships that we have are much more important than making a fee off their case. Obviously, we're in a business and we have to make fees off of cases to survive, but the relationships you have with the people, that's what really helps you as a person but it also helps you to grow, because once that's out there, they have no problem referring their friends to you. And that's a great byproduct of a good relationship, is getting a referral from a prior client.
I love that you start with that. I want you to get 5-star. I want a 5-star review. So that's the kind of service you're going to get.
That's our theme here.
I love that. Can you share a story with us where a client or a case that reminded you why you practice law the way you do?
Hey, lawyers, are you losing cases to firms online that aren't even better attorneys than you? They're just better at marketing. Most law firms are nearly invisible online. If you're not showing up in the Google Map pack, if your ads aren't converting, or if you're constantly waiting on referrals, you're leaving money on the table. At Law Marketing Zone, we've helped clients go from 0 to over 20 cases a month. And we put our top strategies into a quick, free checklist, the Law Firm Marketing Fix. 10 ways to stop losing clients online. Download it right now for free. You'll discover the biggest mistakes most firms are making and how to fix them fast. Then, if you're ready, book a free strategy call and we'll walk through the gaps in your current marketing. Don't wait for referrals. Start attracting your ideal clients today. Click to get the checklist now.
Yes, and it happened several years ago, but had a client, a woman. We represented the woman, the surviving spouse of a man who was killed in an automobile in a fire. And it was a simple one vehicle rollover type case, but struck a bridge abutment, and then the pickup caught fire and burned him inside it. And there were kids right there by where it happened on bicycles, and they heard it, they saw it, and they heard him screaming during the fire. And it had a lot of bad things going on with it. In representing this woman and her 2 small children against the auto manufacturer, that was so rewarding to me, because that did not need to happen. The design of that vehicle basically caused this whole thing to happen. He should have walked away from this little rollover accident.
Wow.
And through all of that, getting to know her and the kids and everything was so important. And it was she was someone who had gone through a devastating, life-changing event that almost destroyed her life and certainly destroyed her family. And the results that we got for her were life-changing to her for the future, because it was enough for her to be able to survive financially, certainly, and then also to send her kids to school and for them to receive some money as they were adults as well. So that's the kind of thing. And I just remember I still get Christmas cards from her. That's the kind of thing, though, that you really think about. A lot of our cases are not life-changing for people, but some of them are. And those that are, man, it's so rewarding to be able to help someone with something that can, in fact, change their life for the better.
I love that. And I know that you run a values-based law firm, values-driven, for over 40 years. What leadership lessons stand out the most over that journey?
Leadership. My current partner is 25 years younger than me.
Right.
And I don't want to just talk about him, because there's been a lot of other lawyers, young lawyers, that have worked for me and through me through the years. But the leadership is difficult. It's difficult in a lot of ways, but it's difficult to identify exactly what makes a good leader. But I think it's someone who wants to do things in a certain way, and the people below you, and I hate to say it that way, but the people working for you want to do it that way too, because it's the right thing to do. It's the right way to do things. And that type of leadership is, I think, just very important. And I've tried to show that, reflect that, and instill that in a lot of lawyers that have worked for me over the years. But I've always had the philosophy that I will never ask a lawyer to do anything that works for me. I'll never ask a lawyer to do anything that I wouldn't do. And so I'm not going to ask them to ever bend any rules, hide anything, not be truthful about things, and all of those things. And I just think being very authentic as a leader is the biggest thing that you can do.
I think one of the really neat things in the law firms is the mentorship. It's expected. You want to bring people up, and that to me is definitely leadership. If you are not interested in mentoring someone, how can you lead a firm at some point in the future?
Exactly. And a lot of people don't want to do that. That's why, and that's fine. I'm not saying there's any problem with that, but a lot of people want to just work for a big firm forever and make a good living and represent whomever, whether it's corporations or individuals or whatever. They want to do that, and they don't want to ever have that leadership thrust upon them, so to speak. And that's fine. But if you're in a position where you can influence people working for you, with you, younger people, I just think it behooves you to do it the right way.
I love that. So if you think about the next generation of lawyers and community leaders coming up behind you, what do you hope they learn from your career about what it really means to serve people through the law?
Well, a lot of what we've already talked about in that I've got 5 adult kids. 2 of them are lawyers. One's a lawyer and one is in his 3rd year of law school right now. They don't work for me. One works in Dallas. The other one's going to be working in Oklahoma City. But them in particular, and what I hope they've seen through me is no matter what, you treat people right and you be honest in everything you do. And I hope that I've got that reputation. I believe I do with all the judges, with the people at the courthouses that I go to and work with. And I just think that the younger generation that sometimes I think that numbers and statistics and just financial results and everything like that are controlling. And I don't think that should be the case. And I think it's hard for them sometimes just because of technology in a lot of ways. But I think technology takes us away from the individual personal relationships. And I think setting that aside enough to develop those relationships is harder for the young lawyers, but I think it's something that they really need to learn and have to do. Honestly, one of the things I said, COVID changed a lot of things. One thing that changed it in some ways for the better, I can get to know someone over a Zoom meeting. I don't have to go to someone's house and sit down with them for 2 or 3 hours. I can get to know somebody if we just talk about things. And I talk to so many clients now over Zoom that it just makes things easier for me, obviously. But I still don't think I'm losing that personal touch. And I think young lawyers need to learn that they can do that. But a text won't do it.
No, but I think you're right. With Zoom, you can get to know people. And a lot of people feel like it's too impersonal. And I think that's not looking at it.
A lot of people still don't want to drive. They don't want to go. They don't want to come to our office. And I don't blame them because it's easier if they don't.
Yeah.
I don't mind going to people's houses. I've been to hundreds and hundreds of people's homes through the years. And I don't mind that at all, but I always give them the option. Look, if you don't mind, I'll come to your home. I'll meet you at a McDonald's close to your home. I'll meet you wherever. But then in the last 5 years or so, since we started so much with the Zoom and the technology, it's more Zoom that will work for a lot of those things. I'll still meet with clients in person as often as I can. And I still go to their homes occasionally, not nearly as much as I used to, but that's still something that is there. But I think at least by Zoom, don't think you can know someone over text or email.
No, that is true. And so finally, if I could wave a magic wand and solve any problem in your firm, what would that problem be?
Wow, that's a good question. Right now, it would be we're growing. Our firm is growing fairly rapidly. Getting our systems in place. That's the biggest issue that we have right now. And we've had systems, but they've had to be changed, and they're always changing. That's the hardest thing, though, is to make sure you're changing them in the right direction. We've changed from, if you have intake, you've got issues there. Yeah. If you have remote workers, that's an issue, obviously. All of those things change your systems, but you don't want to change them defensively. We want to change them offensively before they become an issue. And that's the hardest thing right now.
Yeah. Working everything out. Tony, I know that my listeners may want to connect with you, reach out to you, and maybe get some guidance from you. Where is the best place for them to reach you?
The easiest place is just by phone, 1-918-302-370, or our website, edwardspattersonlaw.com. We have our offices in Tulsa and McAlester, and if they get in touch with me that way, like I say, I don't mind talking to them, and I certainly don't mind even meeting with them, that sort of thing, if we need to, whether it's a client or another lawyer or whomever. If somebody just wants to talk, I don't mind doing that either.
Tony, thank you so much for your time today. This has been really, really a pleasant conversation. I've really enjoyed getting to know you over Zoom.
All right. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Good to see you.
Thanks for joining me today for this episode. As we wrap up, I'd love for you to do two things. First, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you find value here, I'd love it if you would rate it and review it. That really does make a difference in helping other people to discover this podcast. Second, you can connect with me on LinkedIn to keep up with what I'm currently learning and thinking about. And if you're ready to take the next step with a digital strategist to help you grow your law firm, I'd be honored to help you. Just go to lawmarketingzone.com to book a call with me. Stay tuned for our next episode next week. Until then, as always, thanks for listening to Leadership in Law Podcast, and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next episode.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Leadership in Law Podcast. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. There's a whole community of law firm owners out there facing similar challenges and striving for the same success. Head over to our website at lawmarketingzone.com. From there, connect with other listeners, access valuable resources, and stay up to date on the latest episodes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, keep leading with vision and keep growing your firm.